Beaucoup Igor, nous reviendrons tout à l'heure à la Russie dans le débat. Robert, c'est à vous. Nous allons entendre maintenant la voix de la justice internationale.
Moi, mon sujet.
Thank you very much, Dominique. My topic is totally different, but actually fits nicely into the aspirations of Thierry de Montbrial on global governance. Allow me to describe in a few words and sentences the situation of what has been a real revolution as far as international justice is concerned, and for someone of my generation is really a satisfying development when you look back on the progress and compare it with what you thought would be absolutely unthinkable. That means, and I refer to the birth of an international justice system. And at the time when we were voting on the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, there was a vote on a text against genocide, and this is 1948, and you have the indication we will have an international tribunal so as to be able to judge perpetrators of the worst crimes, that is, crimes against humanity. And then time passed, and at the end of the Cold War, what was an intellectual aim became a political aim, to make sure that the perpetrators of the worst crimes possibly and imaginable against genocides, displacements, mass murders, etc., etc., and you have a long list, can be put in front of a court and trialed. And experience over the centuries showed cannot always be dealt with by national authorities, and therefore you need an international penal justice system so that the humanity at large can protect itself. And this is a big, big cause. And I'd like to recall to all of us that victims of genocides, or families of victims of genocides, do not support or the idea that those crimes can remain unpunished. You need to have a justice being fulfilled, and seeking justice is one of the fundamental aspirations. And when you have pictures of dictators responsible for genocides that just go fishing with their grandchildren and not being punished, is unsupportable to victims and their families. And out of that, and I'd like to say thank you very much, Hubert, and also to President Mitterrand, that fully understood, and Boutros Ghali, that also participated, and we now have a system that is in place for 20 years now, and we made enormous progress, insufficient, yes, but enormous progress for the penal international justice, so that people, perpetrators of any crimes, can be trialed. The steps are quite easy. We had first the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia. I have now the figures. We have 161 persons accused, 126 trials, 120 were tried. So some of the trials are still going on. So a lot of difficulties for the reasons we all know, but we really have an international penal justice system. Same thing for the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and then we have the other ad hoc systems that you all know about: Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Sierra Leone. All that just to come to what we had as a common ambition, to have not legal systems that were made up after acts happened so as to trial the perpetrators like the Nuremberg trials, but you have a permanent penal system, and therefore perpetrators need to know that because their crimes have no prescription, they will one day have to answer of their deeds and misdeeds. So the creation of the International Court of Justice is not installed and built on the Chapter 7 from the Security Council. We have now 60 states that ratified it, not the big ones, neither the United States of America, they always dislike the idea unless they control it, neither Russia, unfortunately, neither India, neither China, and I could continue with the big countries, are members of the Rome Treaty. But the Rome Treaty has an organic link because the Security Council can use the International Court of Justice if it decides to do so. And after 10 years, and the Treaty of Rome is June 2002, at about, in those 10 years, what have we seen? Well, we had a lot of difficulties in the beginning and in the startup phase, but now we have 7 situations that are referred to the International Court of Justice. I'm saying situation, it's just a couple of crimes. I don't know the number of trials, but situations that are being dealt by the International Court of Justice. And those situations do correspond to the different ways that you can actually refer to. You have Rwanda, Congo, RCA. This is coming out of Africa, that are, as far as jurisdiction is concerned, under the control, under the authority of the International Court of Justice, so that they can judge and trial what has happened. 2 other case situations that came from the Security Council, we know them. It's Darfur, and in the last couple of weeks and days, Libya. And it's again the Security Council that referred that situation to the International Court of Justice, showing at the same time that the International Court of Justice is serving the law and the rule of law. And finally, there are 2 situations where the International Court of Justice just took it up on its own initiative, and that after the prosecutor had investigations going on, and this is Kenya, and that is also the Ivory Coast. And I think about Mr. Gbagbo, and he is where he should be and should have been, in a cell in The Hague. So, just to show you that the movement cannot be stopped, because this is a question of the common conscience of humanity, this urge of justice, and that things that happened in the past, and under a global perspective, you now have a radical approach. For anything outside of the military sphere, you have a transfer of the power to trial. Usually it was the king, you know, justice and the sword, and this is a very strong symbol to transfer that power. And you just don't judge without any base, and therefore you need texts, you need rules. Why do you trial those people? Because the international community and the 116 states that ratified, but also the states member of the Security Council, when they referred cases to, have to recognize and recognized that on the basis of the fundamental texts, therefore crimes against humanity, you agree that these people can be tried. So, Thierry, when yesterday you said that we don't see the values anymore, and I was listening and I said, yes, he's right, but there's one thing: these worst criminals can be tried, and what is it? It's crimes against humanity, and we judge them on that. And it's a difficult evolution, the evolution of the justice system and the penal system. And of course, we always know that we have the right to veto in the Security Council, but there is a real progress, and this is a clear hope for someone that follows that evolution for so many years as I do. So let me conclude by the following. The International Court of Justice depends on the member states. Why? Because it has no autonomous force. There is no international police force that would allow any prosecutor to enforce certain acts. And we always depend on member states, and we also know how difficult this was in some states. And then you also have a budget. And this budget, of course, is necessary so as to achieve objectives. And in the times we know it's not easy to have and get those financial resources necessary, but absolutely indispensable to do so. And my last point, and this is a slight note on as a reserve, so to say, to have an international penal system, to be totally credible and to be taken seriously, needs to be universal. That means that you need to judge the persons on the account of the severity of the crime and not on the political interests of the member states. And there are too many states that actually have an immunity, and when I say states, I also think about the criminals leading those states, and one day, when they lost power, will hopefully, that's my personal hope, will have to respond from their deeds and actions. Thank you.